about this subject. That's what I really mean. I want you guys to talk. Talk about it at the dinner table. Talk about it with your family over Thanksgiving dinner. Most importantly, have these conversations with the people that you know. Your family members, your friends, your parents, your neighbors, your professors, your faculty advisors. These are the people you have built-in credibility with. These people actually give a shit with what you have to say. They care about what you think because they interact with you day in and day out. And they care about what happens to you. They want to see good things happen to you. They don't want to see you suffer from negative consequences. So these are the people you need to be having these conversations with. You know, conversely, oftentimes when I interact, particularly with young people who first get into this movement and they feel like they're overwhelmed with information, they say, yeah, I want to tell everybody about it. I want to go on the street corner and hand out leaflets to total strangers. Or I want to engage in debates with some paid prohibitionist. Or I want to go on some anti-drug blog that doesn't allow comments and try to sneak comments in. That shit's easy, man. There's nothing hard about talking about this issue to strangers. There's nothing hard about posting anonymously on message boards. Big deal. The hard part is talking to the people that you know and talking to them one-on-one. But that's what needs to be done if ultimately we are going to change public opinion, and more importantly, if we're going to ultimately change the culture surrounding the public policies we have for marijuana. So after you're done talking about the evils of the drug war with your friends and your family and your faculty, and you encourage them, of course, to continue the conversations after you've had these conversations with them, then it's time to move on and start discussing, having these discussions with those who can shape public opinion and public policy. This includes the editors of your school newspaper, the leaders of your student government, your city council, your mayor, your state elected officials. Talk to these folks and keep talking to these folks because they might not be really receptive the first couple times. And if they won't listen to you, if it becomes clear after the third or fourth time you've approached them and you've been respectful and you've been articulate and you've left materials with them that they ignore, well then become one of them. Student newspaper doesn't want to run your op-eds or your letters to the editors or your editorials. Join the student newspaper. Student government's giving you the arm. They don't want to listen to your proposals. They don't want to have votes on your proposals. Run for and join the student government. City council's giving you a hard time. Don't want to listen to you. Don't want to take you seriously. Get some friends together. Raise some money. Run for city council. Kelly did it. You guys can do it. Because guess what? If none of you guys are going to do it, if none of you guys are going to join the school paper, join local government, join student government, then who is? Here's something else I want to bring up in this entire discussion where you guys really come in. When we're having discussions, and particularly when young people are having discussions about reforming marijuana laws, I think that anytime you're engaging in outreach efforts, it's important to personalize it in this frame. You need to say, when we're talking about marijuana policy, that this is not a policy in my name. Because those that support prohibition, when they're forced to defend it, when they're forced to come up and articulate reasons why they support the policy that allows for law enforcement to seize marijuana from an individual, even if it's used in the privacy of their own home, and to arrest them and prosecute them and incarcerate them, when they're forced to defend that policy, they ultimately rely on you. They say, well, this is all about protecting and providing for the best interests of young people. Sort of like we have to burn the village to destroy it. Don't let them get away with that. Make it clear that this drug war, this war on marijuana, is not in your name. It's time for all of you in this room to stop being scapegoats for the abuses and the excesses of the drug war. It's time to say enough. We don't want your criminal policies. We never asked for your criminal policies. And we're tired of having our good names used to support your failed policies. The war on marijuana isn't saving us, it's harming us. And we demand that it comes to an end before it harms and destroys and damages another generation the same way it's damaged this generation. So that's the easy part. Here's the hard part. If young people and students, and I'm talking about all of you guys here, and your friends and colleagues who aren't here, I'm talking about them too. And I hope you go home and spread this message to them. If you guys really are going to be the game changers in this battle, then we need all of you to take in your mind, to take a pledge. And that's this. Don't let your activism be a phase in your life. Make it a part of your life. Don't see your efforts to reform marijuana laws as a phase that you engaged in when you were in high school, or a phase that you engaged in when you were in college, or a phase you engaged in when you were single. And then rationalize and say, well, that made sense before I had a full-time job. It made sense before I had a wife and kid. It made sense before I had to apply for a job and was worried about getting drug tested or what I put on my resume. That's weak, in my opinion. I gotta tell you. I've heard it for generations. I get where it's coming from. I'm not sympathetic to it at all. I got a wife. I got a kid, I got a house, and this isn't just a phase. This is part of who I am, and I've made it a part of who I am because this is such a serious issue. Now, it's a little different for you guys. When I graduated college in 1994, there was no SSDP, there was no Students for Sensible Drug Policy. There was no ASA, Americans for Safe Access. The Marijuana Policy Project existed. It was two people. It was Rob Campia and Chuck Thomas. They even have an office. They were eating canned beans in a two-bedroom apartment in Washington, D.C. at that time. The Drug Policy Alliance had just started. That they had a single office in New York City, unlike now when they have offices in New Jersey, D.C., New Mexico, Southern California, all throughout the country. There was no LEAP, no law enforcement against prohibition. There was no SAFER. Frankly, there was really no professional drug law reform movement. Since then, the landscape has changed monumentally. Today, there are now dozens of new organizations working on drug policy reform. And with that, there's dozens of job opportunities for you to get involved and stay involved in marijuana policy after you graduate high school. And your choices aren't just limited to working for a dozen or 2 dozen marijuana law reform or drug law reform specific organizations. Just within the last few months, Fire Dog Lake, the FDL, a very well-known, wide-reaching, left-leaning political think tank, has said, we are going to devote the bulk of our resources for the next 2 years on trying to reform marijuana laws. And they have 3 people right now, full-time, that all they are doing is working on the marijuana issue. Just last week, the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union in California, which represents 750,000 households, said, we're going to make marijuana legalization a part of our political platform. We are going to be using our resources for the next few months to push for marijuana law reform. The California chapter of the NAACP came out about 3 or 4 weeks ago and said, we think marijuana law reform is a civil rights issue. This is going to be a focus of our work at the NAACP. These are not organizations people would necessarily associate with drug law or marijuana law reform. But as our issue has gained more momentum and more popularity among the public and more political support, we are seeing more and more of these large, very well-respected organizations saying, we're going to get involved in this issue too. We're going to dedicate resources for this issue too. So there is this unprecedented opportunity that you guys have right now, if this is a subject that interests you, to continue to work on this full time. So I leave you guys with a challenge. You really want to end the drug war? You really want to end the war on marijuana? Consider making drug policy your career choice. If you're still in school, you can start right now by applying for an internship with Normal. You can apply for an internship with SSDP. Other groups I named earlier, SAFER, MPP, they have internships as well. Almost all of these groups have internship programs. And many of the leaders that are now currently leading this movement, whether it's someone like a Mason Tvert from SAFER, or Jesse Stout from RIPAC, or Stacia Cosner at SSDP, or Tom Angel at LEAP, these are people that all at one time were interns at these different organizations. They cut their teeth as interns, and years later, they became decision makers in this movement. Now, of course, even if you don't want to pursue marijuana law reform as a career, and there's probably plenty of you that don't want to do that. I don't blame you if you don't want to do that. But I do encourage you to stay active in this movement nonetheless. It's easier now to do that than it's ever been. We've got the internet, we've got podcasts, we've got listservs, we've got social networking sites, we have sites like Facebook. You now have access to unparalleled quantities of drug law information in real time. Normal's Facebook page is something like 220,000 fans. We update it about 6 or 7 different times a day. We have a 2-hour audio podcast that we produce 5 days a week that has current news and headlines. We have a CapWiz service which tells people in real time and alerts them when legislation is pending in their district, and it calls on them to contact their legislator, to write to their legislator, and we write the letter for you. All you have to do is basically enter your information, tailor the letter the way you want or the phone call the way you want, and you contact that legislator right before bills are pending. We even have an iPhone application that keeps all of this information in your inbox in real time if you want it. So you have this opportunity now, even if you're not working on this issue, to instantly know what is taking place in this issue. So the bottom line is this. All of you in this room have the power to change these laws, because it's not all about changing public opinion, but it is all about changing the culture. And today you've got an unprecedented opportunity to do that. So it's like Nike says, what you guys need to do is just get out there and just do it.